Takes 1 second. Hey, happy Friday, everyone. I have been waiting to have Dr. Wilson-Binotti on with us. She is an Alzheimer's and dementia expert, and this is something that I'm so excited to talk about. So welcome. I'm glad you're here. Can you tell us what Alzheimer's is?
Well, a lot of people ask me, what's the difference between Alzheimer's and dementia? There isn't. Alzheimer's is a type of dementia. So dementia is, you could think of as the umbrella term, and then Alzheimer's is a type. It is the most common type, comprising 70% of all dementias. So Alzheimer's is a brain disorder of aging that is not natural aging. And what it is, it's accumulation of plaques and tangles in the brain that preclude you from thinking and remembering.
Okay. So just listening to this, I'm like, is it something we do as we're eating the wrong food, or do things contribute to it, or is it just?
That's a very good question. Yes, things can contribute to it. There are genetic markers that make you more predisposed to developing it. There are types that if you have the genetic marker, you will develop it. And I'm thinking of early onset, which by definition means it develops prior to the age of 65.
Okay.
That would be a genetic setup. Now, in terms of the typical older age Alzheimer's, some of the things we do in combination with the genetic markers we get can make you more susceptible to developing it. And so the kinds of things I'm talking about are higher alcohol intake, eating red meat, smoking, depression, anxiety. These are the things that make us weaker and more susceptible to developing it.
Okay, that makes perfect sense. And I just have to say, when my mother was ill, the doctor showed me a picture of her brain and her lungs, and she did not have dementia, but you could just see how everything shrinks and how things change in there from, and her lungs, because she had trouble breathing.
Absolutely.
Not from smoking, but yeah.
Well, when the oxygen doesn't get to your brain, then we start to have problems. And smoking reduces the oxygen to your brain. So does sleep apnea. If you have sleep apnea or suspect it, get it treated, because you're depriving your brain of oxygen all night long, every night.
Wow.
You need to fix that. So repeat that question again for me.
Well, I think you answered it. Was there, are there things you can do to try and prevent? So, and I've heard people should, exercise their brain,
That's a big deal. Yeah, it is a big deal, but it isn't just exercising your brain in doing cognitive tasks, but actually exercising.
Oh, okay.
Strengthens your heart, pumps oxygen to the brain, blood and oxygen to the brain. It is a big deal. And another big deal is to continue to socialize.
Yes.
This is very important. This is the one factor, other than exercise, as we age, that is very important to retention of cognitive abilities. I want to go back to, you mentioned about your mom and her brain shrinking, though she didn't have Alzheimer's. There is a normal aging curve, and there's going to be shrinkage of the brain as we age. But there is a range that we would expect at our age, that there would be shrinkage and loss of abilities. But there's a normal range. And if you, in testing, like the testing that I do, if your results fall more than 1.5 standard deviations below the norm for your age, and in some cases for your age and education, we consider that impairment.
Okay.
Yeah. And neuropsychologists will do profile interpretation. So when you do a series of tests, you build a profile, and then the type of profile, it can help to inform what type of dementia someone may have.
Right. Yeah. Because everybody, if you asked me to speak to you in French, I'm not going to be able to answer that. Today, 40 years ago, or 40 years from now, I'm not going to speak fluent French.
That's right. And
Yeah.
that's a very good point. You bring up that you wouldn't be able to speak French, but say, I couldn't either, but I was never able to speak French.
Right.
So
Right.
what we look for in older folks is a change from their previous level of functioning. So that's
Right.
where you get calls from, usually it's grown children who say, I'm seeing some things in mom that are kind of disturbing and need to understand what's happening.
So that really is what I really want to get to is, when do we call you in, or someone like you? Because and I'm sure you see this, but I see this. People want to just ignore it. In fact, I said to my sister today, I said, "You got to watch today." She said, "I don't want to know." Well, that is not a good. She goes, "I don't want to see myself." No, that is not a good answer.
No, it's not. But we're looking at something that's really terrifying for people to look at, and it's hard. And families will try to rationalize it along the way, and many families will rationalize it until mom's in the later stage. Okay, um, but it's you want to look for a change in behavior, even if it's you know, dad has never been depressed, but now all of a sudden he is. That could be a sign. Anxiety or increased anxiety can be a sign. I think that anybody with a parent or sibling or spouse that is 80 and over, you kind of want to keep an eye out for it. Losing things more than you think they should, putting them in strange places,
Mhm.
word finding problems, um,
How about,
behavior, changes in personality.
that's what I was going to say. How about like anger?
Yeah. Yeah, so there's can be a lower tolerance for frustration, and so they're quicker to get
Mm,
agitated. They might get agitated as the day gets on into late afternoon and evening.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
so. My ex-husband had Alzheimer's, and that's what I saw. It was like he was so different at night.
Yes.
And
Yes.
then, then the morning, okay, then what you do is you say, "Oh, I guess he's okay."
Yes.
Because he was normal, or, normal in the morning. But I think people need to be very aware of that.
Yes.
Um,
Yes. Change in personality.
and once we start seeing these, what are the things that can some things, if we catch it earlier, can that help? Or is it just there's nothing we can do anyway, so what's the difference?
Well, it can help because there are things we can do. So say a mood disorder has developed like depression, and anxiety. We can treat that. Just because it's a result of dementia doesn't mean it's not treatable. It is treatable, and we need to
Mhm.
do that for the person's sense of emotional well-being, and that also can help kind of keep it at bay.
Right.
Um, if someone has problems with hearing, I do want to make a point to talk about hearing. So many times, older folks, they just say, "Oh, I don't need the hearing aids. They're not comfortable. They don't work." It's very important that hearing impairment gets treated because untreated hearing loss with dementia can advance 40%, up to 40% faster.
That
Okay.
is what I heard. And I just had a meeting with Dr. Lisa. I'm not sure how to pronounce her name. Do you know her? But she is an audiologist, and she was talking about
Yeah.
that hearing loss can lead to dementia because it's something in your brain.
It contributes to it.
It
If you have
contributes.
a parent or spouse that's starting to have hearing loss, they could develop dementia as well. I think we're not entirely sure about the relationship. I suspect that it's a circuitous relationship, kind of feeds each other.
Yeah, yeah. That's really good to know, and even more of a reason for people to get their hearing
Absolutely.
and taken care of. Just eliminate one other issue. Same way they should be exercising.
Right,
And
that's exactly it. And then back to your question about, well, what can be done about it? Dementia, it's a process. It's progressive by nature, but the things we do is we try to treat the symptoms, slow the progression, and so, as I said, we want to treat the moods. There's also the Aricept and Namenda. These are cholinesterase inhibitors. They help in some people. It doesn't stop progression, but it can help make the brain connections for a period of time. We want to make sure that the person is safe, okay, and that they're as independent as they can be within that safe environment. So we have to determine what would be the most appropriate level of structure and care for this person. So that's very important. It helps them function at a higher level. So if you
yes,
you want to think about children and how the younger they are, the more structure they need. But as they develop cognitive abilities, we can kind of loosen that. It's the opposite way with people going into dementia.
yeah. So if you set up their home and you teach them a routine and make sure that they're around people all the
Right.
time,
That's right.
and that would help. And what I'm concerned about is, since people don't want to talk about it, they let people get into automobiles.
They do.
And
They do.
I know one person who found themselves, like, well, it's happened more than once. Just they don't know where they are, and they are lucky that they didn't kill themselves or somebody else.
And that's just it. We need to understand that driving is a privilege. It is not a right. And if you are a danger to yourself or others, you must not drive, period. And yes, I understand that older people, they think, oh, how can you take that away from me? I can't get any. Well, we'll have to figure it out because you cannot operate a vehicle.
Right. And it's, in my mind, it's an accident waiting to happen, because I see
Absolutely
families
is.
and they don't want to deal with it. And
They don't.
I say, when I see it, as sure as I'm sitting here, there is going to be a tragedy of some
Yes,
sort.
that's
And then
right.
you'll go, oh, I guess we need to do it.
That's right. That's right. Don't wait until it's too late.
Yeah. Yeah. And
So
also with housing, I think it's really important that people understand it's a long process. And wherever, if you're staying in your home, if you're moving, you've got to analyze what your resources are, what care is needed, what care is likely to be needed. You need to plan. You can't just,
that's right. That's absolutely right. People say, well, like you said before, Betsy, it's like, well, if we can't do anything about it, why do we want to know? Well, you do want to know because you want to plan, you want to understand what the progression arc is going to be. You want to anticipate. If the person doesn't have estate documents completed, they need to do it. And I'm talking specifically for powers of attorney for when you're deemed not able to make decisions on your own behalf. You want to be sure that you've appointed someone that you trust
that's
to do
right.
that for you. Those
Absolutely.
reasons. And so sleeping as well. Days and nights get turned around. You want to help them sleep at night. And so they're up during the day and not napping during the day
Yes.
at night.
Yes. And it can happen quickly. And not having those wills and trusts in place, any attorney worth their salt is not going to let you sign if they're the person sign if they can tell they're not in right body mind.
Right, right. And so that I do get referrals from attorneys who say I need to know if this person is able, if they have cognitive capacity to make
Right.
decisions, and if they have testamentary capacity to sign new documents or whatever. So
Right.
that's a very important part of it as well.
So tell me, before we finish, the kinds of things that people could reach out to you for. And you just said if there's a legal question, if you're
Right.
competent.
Yeah, hallucinations, these are common with dementia, delusions, changes in behavior, um, wandering, um, really just there are so many reasons to get this evaluation.
And then once you get this evaluation, then other services then can you can
Correct.
start looking for.
Right. So I offer my opinion as to diagnoses, and I offer recommendations as to give the family direction.
That's key. That is really key. So that's very important. And I am sure this is, I don't know why. Do we know why it's more of a guess, but why we know so many people in this situation now?
I'm going to take a real good stab at it. The isolation that people have suffered over the last 2 to 2.5 years has been really, really difficult. People have declined faster, including younger, healthy people, and but we see it really prominently in older folks. And they're just families are just trying to catch up and
Mhm.
help their loved one as much as possible.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think we live in a more isolated
Yeah.
society now. So, and I'm comparing it to say 50 years ago.
Yes.
And I think that people live longer. So it's a
Yes.
combination of those
And we
sort of
know more about it.
yeah,
It's different than just locking grandma in the back room and
yeah,
just saying, "Yeah, she's kind of crazy." We know more about it, and we have more ways of dealing with it.
yeah, yeah. Well, this has been fabulous. Thank you so much for your time. And
My
I
pleasure.
know that anybody that needs to reach out, please do not wait until there's an emergency.
That's right. Don't wait.
Don't wait. All right. Thank you so much. Everybody have a great weekend.
Thanks, Betsy.
Thanks.